Hello and welcome to this CRN webinar entitled The State of Sustainability, Balancing AI Ethics, ROI and Real-World Impact. My name is Sara Yirrell, Consulting Editor at CRN. Sustainability has become a key priority for organisations in recent years, but the path towards meaningful progress is complex. Leaders are being asked to deliver measurable ROI, align with evolving regulations, and ensure ethical, environmentally sound use of emerging technologies, especially AI, while driving long-term impact. These factors can be hard to excel at and harder still to balance, particularly at a time when competitiveness in the market is high and profitability is low. In this webinar, I'm joined today by Vicky Withey, Delivery and GRC Director at Bell Integration, and Matt Harris, Content Strategist at CRN. Hello, both of you.
Hi, Sara.
Hey, great to be here.
We'll be exploring how organisations are adopting sustainability initiatives while balancing business priorities. Vicky, if I could ask you for a brief introduction to yourself and Bell Integration and grab your thoughts on our subject matter today and why it matters so much.
Thank you for, first of all, inviting me. And as you've already introduced myself, my name is Vicky, and I am a believer of being an optimist and a force for good, and especially in the world of sustainability and for tech companies. I work personally for an amazing company called Bell Integration. We are a global established company. We specialise in many managed services, cloud migrations and data centre optimizations, as well as AI solution specialists. And like I say, we're a global company, so come and check us out.
Thanks, Vicky. I'll now hand over to Matt to share the first set of research findings.
Awesome. Thanks, Sara. So, ahead of this webinar, we surveyed just under 100 IT leaders and decision makers in EMEA around their kind of sustainability, their kind of approach to AI and ROI with respect to sustainability. And we have some bespoke research here for you all. So just to jump straight in, the first question that we asked was how companies would currently describe their organization's sentiment overall towards sustainability. And we found that around 9 in 10 companies said it was important or very important to their organization, which is obviously great to see. Moving on, we asked how they would describe their organization's overall approach to sustainability in real terms. And as such, we found that 9 in 10 companies are currently pursuing sustainability initiatives, the majority of which are kind of in the early/developing stage. And around a quarter have advanced initiatives that are fully integrated across operations. We also asked how embedded sustainability was in their core business decision making. So we've got some sort of mixed feedback here. About half of companies said that it was considered regularly, but not consistently. Just over a quarter said it was central to their strategic and investment decisions. And 1 in 5 companies consider it rarely or reactively. We then asked which areas of sustainability are your organization currently focusing on. Again, there's quite a lot to digest here, but I think the key takeaway is that the most common areas were energy efficiency, carbon reduction, and waste reduction as well. Finally, for this section of research, we asked how they measured the success or ROI of their sustainability initiatives. And we kind of found that cost savings and environmental impact were really driving that and sort of benchmarking success for their sustainability programs internally.
Thanks, Matt. So, Vicky, we'll just delve a little deeper into a couple of those points. As Matt just said, 9 in 10 companies find sustainability to be important to them and do have some form of sustainability initiative in place, which is encouraging. But the majority of these initiatives are still very much in the early developing stage. What do you think could be holding these companies back from more developed initiatives, and what advice would you give for companies on that journey?
Okay, so my thoughts is, first of all, it's positive to see that there's a start and there's emotion around this, surrounding encouraging environmental conversations, sustainability conversations within all businesses in every sector. I think what's holding us back sits around, obviously, competing priorities, competing resources, and very much focused on where that return of investment sits and looking at financial performance, operational performance. Also, sustainability has got some real nuances and depth attached to it in terms of knowledge and training. I mean, you talk about Scope 3 emissions, and most people run for the hills because they don't know how to manage it, how to incorporate it into their organisation. It's such a big topic. And I guess the intricacies of that is you need depth of knowledge and you need frameworks, most importantly, to work from. To make this meaningful, you have to start somewhere and sort of having a governance framework. So leaning into, for example, more simple frameworks like ISO 14001, which is around environmental impacts, looking at more, and then the other side of it, looking at far deeper depths of SBTIs and Scope 3 emissions. So there's a whole scale. Then the UN sustainability goals, SECR reporting. So there's lots of different mechanisms that can drive those conversations in controlled ways. I think what else stops organisations? I think it's unpreparedness, or maybe some people putting their head in the sand that it's not going to impact me. I'm not going to be here in 5 years' time. I will be retired by then. It's somebody else's problem. And actually, it's going to take more stringent government regulation, I think, to obviously entice businesses to think more strategically about encouraging boards to think about sustainability and return of investment and AI and all of that pot together as one, rather than looking at as separate initiatives within a business.
Thanks, Vicky. Secondly, our survey found that while only 10% of companies say sustainability is not important and have no initiatives in place, 20% admit they consider sustainability only rarely or reactively in business decisions. Why is it important for organisations to actively factor sustainability into their day-to-day decision-making rather than just treating it as a secondary consideration?
It matters because whether we like it or not, risk is part of our business, part of any business profile. Investors expect it, customers, employees. If you talk about retention of employees or even retention of customers, it's part of that strategy that means that businesses will be more sustainable. And when I talk about sustainable in that respect, I'm actually talking about the long-term and longevity and the lifespan of a business as well. I'm not talking about just being sustainable and green. So that's why I think it's important. Regulation, of course, and legislation will determine what other form and shape that takes. But I think being prepared and looking at it from a risk perspective, reducing your business risk, will be key in driving that forward. So if boards are considering it now, you're ahead of the game because there's only so much regulation in place, and by being prepared means that you're de-risking your business and your business profile.
What are some of the little sustainability wins that companies could start to implement if they do have budget concerns?
I think first of all, foremost, most businesses have very small teams, maybe one person or maybe none. So I think if you've got nobody in your organisation, first of all, responsible for anything, I think we have to look at naturally the operations of the business then and put the onus on those within the business who are driving those activities. So for example, who's looking at finance? If they're looking at finance, they might be looking at return on investments through initiatives. You're looking through IT lens. So what are IT doing through the lens of sustainability? How are they optimizing energy usage across data centers? What servers are they using? What data security have they got? If we look at travel, majority of businesses have a beautiful hybrid approach now, which is great for sustainability. We're doing this today. We're not in person, we're doing it online again. Really sustainable. But there's obviously times when you do need to travel. So, where's your travel department? And, how are you capturing this information? Where is it sitting? And then work out what that translates in terms of CO2 and emissions from a business perspective. I think having good data sources is absolutely key. So knowing where to get your data, and again, using simple governance frameworks helps get those established. So use SECR, use 14,001 as frameworks to explore these topics, and then try and naturally find owners across the business operations itself. That way you've got better collective management responsibility, rather than actually creating a risk in itself by having a very dedicated one person that might know everything in this area, which generates its own risk in itself, because if they leave your organisation, they probably take all that knowledge with them too. So I think it's better to spread the risk and find everybody who can contribute in some way, in a helpful way.
Great advice. Thanks, Vicky. Right, back to Matt for the next set of survey findings.
Yep. Thanks, Sara. So yeah, as we kind of mentioned previously, our next section will really focus on AI adoption and the kind of use of that. So our first question was, to what extent does your organization use AI? And we found that around 85% use AI in some form, but just under 20% actually use it with a purposeful strategy in place. So as you can see kind of by this pie chart, most of the use is ad hoc and kind of lacks that clear strategy. We then asked how they would evaluate the impact that AI had inside their business. We found that all of our respondents regarded it as a positive thing, though some are reticent to label it as, very positive and transformative. Next up, we talk around some of the concerns around environmental implications, ethical implications. We can see here some clear concerns. So around 2/3 of those surveyed were somewhat or very concerned about ethics, about the environmental aspects of AI. We then asked which best described how AI decisions are governed in their organizations. We found that just under 1/3 have a clear governance framework in place, and around 6% have no formal governance at all. Finally, for this section, we asked which barriers prevent them from using AI more effectively for sustainability. And again, there is quite a lot to digest here, but we can see the lack of internal AI expertise or skills was said to be the biggest barrier. And actually, that's something that we see quite a lot across all of our other research, that there's a real need for talent, internal training, and that kind of thing. Do actually think we have one more question for this. Yes, we do. Where do sustainability discussions most often stall internally? And just as a flashback to that kind of first section, short-term cost pressures and difficulty in measuring ROI were both said to be quite key factors in stalling those discussions, and certainly something to look to overcome.
Great. Thanks, Matt. Some really interesting stuff there, actually. So as we just heard, 2/3 of respondents expressed palpable concerns around the environment or ethical impacts of AI, while the majority of companies continue to use AI without a clear strategy in place. Why do you think that gap exists, Vicky, and how can considerations be built into their AI strategies?
Okay, this is a complex question and a really interesting one to ask as well. But for me, first of all, I think most importantly, we recognise that AI is here. It is being used across organisations, even if they think it's not being used. It probably is, and it's hidden. It's like stealth IT, shadow IT, is like we know it. And I think the question is how responsible and how effective it is being used, and therefore, if we're using it, how do we use it? How are we going to empower our business to use AI effectively in our organisation? So what is it that we want to get out of using AI? And if we can answer those questions, I think that then helps us then build the rest of the world around it in terms of how do we measure those KPIs? How do we measure the sustainability and the carbon footprint? So I have a couple of thoughts around this. One is around environmental impact. We all know that AI is energy intensive. The carbon footprint is high, and therefore it doesn't feel easy. especially when we talk about it with our hats on being green and sustainable businesses. So with that in mind, I think we really need to be really considerate in business about where we deploy AI. Think about where it will add the most value, and give it the most prominent strategic priorities attached to it, and run proper projects against these things. Don't try and do 50 things. Try and do 2 or 3 things throughout the year that will help improve your organization, and monitor and track it and look at the investment behind it versus actually the other saving in terms of the operational input that's required, the engagement that it requires, maybe the time and effort, etc. That there's always this cost benefit analysis between the use of AI and how sustainable it is in terms of the energy use that it's actually taking up. Then the other aspect is ethics of AI as well. For me, in terms of regulation, it's really clear. Human oversight is the most powerful part of the regulation, or EU AI Act as we know it. And data governance, the transparency, AI biases, all of that needs to be considered as part of a framework. And again, there are really good frameworks out there. You can use GDPR. The ICO has brilliant advice on how to use AI in a responsible, ethical way, built on those great principles of GDPR. I think behind all of this, actually unlocking the potential of AI with sustainability, that's the powerful thing. That's the powerful thing that if you put those two things together, that actually harnesses and makes your business, gives it the competitive edge that it's looking for, because you're able to give assurance around clear governance around AI, but you're also considering how that translates into the environmental impact as well. But again, you have to be sure about each of those projects you're doing. What are you measuring? Why are you measuring it? What are you trying to get out of it? I guess that takes some thought, some guidance, and careful consideration, because every business is different. So I think it's understanding what are the key drivers, what are the priorities that you need out of utilising that AI tool in a way that means that you can then offset that energy consumption from that sustainability perspective and say, okay, now where's that saving? Where did I get that return on investment? It's not just a return on investment around financial return on investment, which of course accountants love, but you also need to look at it through the sustainability lens as well, and also growing your customer base and thinking about the impact this has on your customers, the building of trust. So both of these things, I think, go hand in hand really well. It's just many businesses haven't quite joined up the dots yet between the two. And actually, as a governance function, that's one of the things that we're able to bring to the party and bring together as an expert in that field, because we see everything through that lens with the oversight of risk.
I guess it's no surprise that a lack of internal AI expertise and skills was said to be the biggest barrier for sustainable AI use. What actionable advice would you have for organisations looking to close that gap?
I think invest in your people, invest in training, very much so. But again, you have to be clear about what are you investing in, and why are you choosing certain people to invest in who will prioritize those AI tools, those AI projects for you. So upskilling on a basic level of how to use it and use it safely is a key priority, especially from a data privacy concern as well. And having that thought process around, it's a great tool, but using it thoughtfully and how to get the best out of it. I think there are many partners out there. We have our own skills and AI practice that can offer help and support as well. And I think, utilize your partners, utilize your IT partners, and they're there to support you through this journey. AI is a scary place for some businesses, and when you have unmountable amount of data within your business. Knowing where to start and where to pinpoint this stuff can be a real challenge, because if you point this stuff at the wrong place, the amount of the data integrity might not always be there. So you have to have, for AI to really be powerful and work, you need the right data and the right data management, the right data strategies in place too. And again, that comes back to understanding data management, data knowledge management of data. Again, it's a really over area of lots of complexity and different layers to it. And I think that building that cross functionality and people sharing their knowledge and experiences within an organisation is vitally important. So we don't just create pockets of expertise, actually coming back around the table and saying, what worked? Why did it work? Or if it didn't work and it failed, that's okay too. Explore those reasons why and actually get to the root cause, look at that continuous improvement program, so that you can celebrate success where you're using AI really great, and where it doesn't work, understand those challenges.
Makes sense. Another big question for you. What do you think AI vendors need to do more of to make this whole sort of area more transparent and easier for their channel partners?
I think we can do a lot more, actually. I think there's a lot more advice and support that we can offer. I think having some basic guidelines and rules around building trust and in echoing those great principles and ethics and business use cases of AI. I think AI, again, is being used in pockets for certain things. But look, the possibilities are endless. It's about finding what are the things that will do the best thing in your business, and how does that translate? I guess the only way you're going to do that is through an active conversation and work with your IT partners to establish, what will it do for you? And that's hard to unpick sometimes. And again, sometimes having an objective view outside of the room, looking into your business, is a good way of, you might see things from a different perspective that you didn't see before. But I think governance, risk and compliance absolutely has a huge part to play in getting a better awareness out there to all of your CRM partners as well. So, I'm a big advocate of sharing knowledge and advice. It's there's no secrets. It's just, and the world of AI is changing and evolving along with sustainability. So keeping up with those new practices, those new thoughts, and looking at things in a different way means that we're always continuing this conversation, because we're always being able to learn something new off somebody else. And then it's taking away those, I call, little golden nuggets, and being able to go, I've learned one thing today, and I could just implement that and make that change in my business. And that is powerful. That's powerful change in a business.
Great advice. Thanks, Vicky. Now hand back to Matt for the final set of findings.
Yeah, great stuff, guys. Thanks, Sara. So in our third and final set of research, we really worked to kind of understand the sentiment and the priorities that our IT audience have. So our first question, we asked, how do organizations evaluate AI initiatives that have clear productivity benefits but uncertain environmental impact? And we found that around a third of companies would actually approve products with kind of uncertain environmental impact if the productivity gains were significant enough. And on the other side of the scale to that, we found that less than 1 in 5 organizations would delay or outright reject an AI strategy that lacked a clear assessment of sustainability impacts. Next up, we asked how likely organizations were to increase investment in sustainability over the next 12 months. Some good numbers here. We found that 4 in 5 are likely or very likely to invest further over the next year, and just 4% said that they were very unlikely. So some clear intent there. We also asked when sustainability, AI adoption, and ROI are conflicting or at odds with each other, which is going to most often win in decision making. So 42% said they do a good job at balancing all three, And then, as you can see in that hierarchy, as the graph moves around, ROI is prioritized above sustainability and AI adoption, and ROI and sustainability are placed higher than AI adoption. Moving on to our last question here, and we wrapped up our research by really asking which outcomes are your top priorities for 2026 and beyond. And as you can see at the top there, cost savings still very much an issue and still very much a key factor in this. We also see some sentiment around employee productivity, around some customer and market differentiation. So yeah, some sort of clear priorities there.
Great stuff. Thanks, Matt. So, Vicky, we just saw that 78% of companies said they plan to invest in sustainability initiatives in the coming year. Is this around what you expected?
I absolutely expected that number to be high, if not even higher than maybe 78%. It doesn't surprise me at all.
That's good to hear. And looking at the sort of ROI side, when we asked the organisations how they prioritise ROI, sustainability, and AI adoption, 40% of companies felt they did a good job at balancing all three, but would prioritise ROI if pushed. Are these sentiments something you often see in the market, and are they right?
Okay. I think here's the thing with principles in a boardroom. I think the concept of ROI is very well established, and lots of people use it as a term, saying, I want to know what my ROI is on that. But within those set of principles of working out what are the key objectives around achieving your ROI, maybe sustainability wasn't always one of them within there. And I think adding sustainability and the flavour of innovation and utilisation of AI are great examples actually of improving ROI as an investment tool. And the risk of not considering those things, I think, need to be explored as well in terms of, if we don't consider sustainability as part of that ROI, we are going to have potentially in the business higher operational costs, for example, through energy use, because we're not considering how to use, for example, AI or other innovative technologies in a energy efficient way. We're not optimizing our data, again, in an energy efficient way. Regulatory compliance and exposure, again, will also be another lens that may be a risk of we prioritize return on investment through that perspective. And again, considering those that sustainability part, sustainability will attract other regulatory compliance, as does AI in itself as well. So I think it's a consideration, and it should be added to the list as how do we do it as a question, and then add that question to the list of objectives around how does a business achieve ROI, but consider each of those other principles within there. And maybe they're the ones that are missing that every organisation doesn't capture. I think organisations overall, though, that are most successful and will be most successful long term are the ones that recognise sustainability as a driver of resilience. Resilience gives you efficiency and a competitive advantage. And that's something that ultimately will separate businesses from those that are truly successful and will drive change in whatever they do.
Thanks, Vicky. Any more closing thoughts?
Okay. The last thought I have is, look, I believe in sharing knowledge, being a force for good. So I've actually gone away and I've written a very short paper, and at the bottom of the paper, if they only want to read one thing, is maybe look at the summary there in terms of a general checklist of things that you could incorporate into your business today that could maybe make some change in some way, through better AI practice, through having a better sustainability program that could change your ability to translate that into better CO2 emissions data. Use it as you wish, but I'm a great believer of sharing my knowledge, so I have gone away, and I hope that you guys will share that information with your readers, so that they can be empowered to do this for themselves.
Great. Sounds like a great resource. Thanks, Vicky. So we've come to the end of our discussion today. Some really interesting stats raised throughout and lots of talking points, I'd say. But the future does appear bright for sustainability as long as companies understand how they can monetize it, which is why discussions like this are absolutely vital. Thank you to Matt for sharing the research findings with us. And thanks to Vicky for a great discussion on how this is impacting our industry and for sharing some really useful tips on how channel companies can use technology to their advantage while still being environmentally conscious. So thanks both of you.
Thank you, Matt and Sara.
Thanks, guys.
And finally, thank you very much for watching.